Shalom. I hope everyone's had a good time with the festivals, and I hope you just had a happy time. I know we're having a happy time, especially now that the hostages are home, and we need to keep praying for the rest to come back to Israel. So our prayers are working, and we need to keep praying along those lines. All right, so let's get started. This week, my teaching is called Witness for God. So let's start out with some prayer. If you'll join me, please. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who sets us apart by his establishments and established us on words of Torah. So, being a witness. So we're going to look at Deuteronomy 32, verse 1. It says, "Listen, heaven, and I will speak. Let the earth hear the words of my mouth." So we're looking towards the future, but it's always important to look to the past and even to the present. Why? Why do we want to look at the past? The most important part is we don't want to make the same mistakes we've made before, made in the past. There's always a hope that we've learned from our mistakes. David said, "My sin is always before me." The sins of his past were always before him, in his face, but it was by choice. In order to not fall into the same traps and pitfalls that the adversary places before us, and will cause us to stumble and fall as he had fallen before. When we fall into the same sin over and over again, our sin isn't before us, it's not in our face, and so we don't remember. The worst part of all of this is the lack of appreciation for the forgiveness that was bestowed on us. So it is so important to look at the past, to not repeat it in the future. Rashi said in Tanhuma 5:10, verse 1, listen in his commentary on where it says, "Listen, heavens," said that I am warning Israel to be a witness to this. For I just told them that you will be a witness. The same applies to let the earth hear. Why did he invoke heaven and earth as witnesses? Moses said, "I am mere flesh and blood and will later die." If Israel will then say, "We did not accept the covenant upon ourselves," who will come and contradict him? He therefore invoked heaven and earth as witnesses because they can remain as witnesses forever. Furthermore, if they act correctly, the witnesses will come and give them their reward. The vine will give its fruit, the earth will give its produce, and heaven will give its due. That's from Zechariah 8:12. And if they are found guilty, the hand of the witnesses will come and give them their reward. And if they are found guilty, the hand of the witnesses will be the first to punish them. He will close off heaven, and there will be no rain. The ground will not give its produce. And that's Deuteronomy 11:17. And only later you will perish quickly at the hands of the nations. In other words, through the attacks of the nations. So heaven and earth are witnesses. So let's go on. Let's find out what else is going on here. Our body, our physical body, is also a witness. It's also a witness, but it's a witness of our past, not only the future, but of our past. You know, we have the DNA. It wasn't around forever, but we've got it now. And it clearly shows us so many things about our makeup. One important thing is the fact that we can medically see the medical problems that we've inherited from our mom, our dad, and so on, and they're passed down to us. But I also think that those that forget the past are destined to repeat it. Years ago, I remember talking to my dad and asking him about our family because I was studying the genealogy of our family. And he was bothered. And he said, "Why do you want to know about the past and dredge up things that no longer exist?" See, I think it's important to never forget from where you came from, to know where you are going. Sometimes we hear, but we're not listening to what the past can teach us. We need to listen to the lessons of the past. The past is probably one of the best teachers if we're willing to look at our errors and strive not to bring those errors into our present and into our future. So, we can look at our body. I mean, for me, when I studied, the genealogy, this was before all the DNA and everything. And when I was studying and looking into where they came from and everything, that's when I found out that our family was Jewish through the studies. Well, then later on, through ancestry, I find out that, yeah, I was right. The DNA showed that. But I think the thing that's so important is that, we can see through these amazing things that science has brought us, we can see our past. Even though we didn't, I didn't know my dad's dad because he passed away when I was very young. But I can know about him through that blood work, right? And I think it's important because it kind of gives us a journey that we can see how our family, moved through time and know possibly what they experienced and therefore know what is handed down to us. Pirkei Avot 3 says, Agabia ben Mahalalel said, "Mark well 3 things, and you will not come into the power of sin. Know from where you come and where you are going, and from where you come and where you're going, and before whom you are destined to give an account and reckoning. From where do you come? From a putrid drop. Where are you going? To a place of dust, of worms, and of maggots. Before whom you are destined to give an account and reckoning. It's before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He." So, the thing that I think is so important is know from where you come and to where you are going and to whom you are destined to give an account, a reckoning. So, witnesses, Deuteronomy 32, let's go back to that, 32 verse 1. "Listen, heaven, and I will speak. Let the earth hear the words of my mouth." Well, Numbers 35:30 says, "If anyone kills a person, the murderer shall be put to death at the evidence of witnesses," plural. "But no person shall be put to death on the testimony of one witness." Deuteronomy 17:6 says, "On the evidence of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, he who is to die shall be put to death. He shall not be put to death on the evidence of 1 witness." Deuteronomy 19:15, A single witness shall not rise up against a man on account of any iniquity or any sin which he has committed. On the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter shall be confirmed. So that's why I have this woman sitting as a witness, but we also have the sun, the moon, the stars, and they are witnesses according to Deuteronomy 32:1. So the sun, moon, and stars and the earth were created, obviously, before man. These came before man, and God calls upon them to be witnesses of man. So we have to stop and think, okay, how are they going to be witnesses? They have to see, they have to hear. There's something within them that can testify. Rashi said, I call as witnesses against you the heaven and the earth, which exist forever. And when evil will befall you, they will be witnesses that I have warned you regarding all this. Targum Jonathan. Ibn Israel said, heaven and earth, pertaining to that scripture of heaven and earth being witnesses, for they endure from generation to generation. Similarly, with regard to this, stone shall be witnesses against us. Joshua 24:27. For Joshua 24:27. And hear ye, O mountains, the Lord's controversy. Micah 6:2. Hiskuni said, I call as witness against you this day both heaven and earth. Witness in the positive as well as in the negative sense of the word. If you will perform the commandments in the Torah, heaven and earth will testify on your behalf. If not, they will testify at the heavenly tribunal against you. They will do this by heaven denying the essential rain to make your crops ripen. Deuteronomy 11:17. So the earth, the heavens testify. They are witnesses, and the lack of rain or the falling of rain can be the blessing that comes from God or the judgment that comes from God, because the heavens and the earth have witnessed something within us that causes us to not be blessed or be blessed. So just keep in mind that they are witnesses. So like I said, the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, they have set a boundary and they follow the course that God has established. They are only capable of following their courses because they know who their creator is. Man, on the other hand, has free will. Man strays from the courses that God established for us. We choose to sin. We choose not to be in the cycle of the year. We choose not to observe the things that God has instructed us to observe, whether it's Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or Pesach. When we choose not to do these things, then yes, we have free will to not do them, but then we're not going in the course. We're not in the cycle of the times that God has established for us. The earth, the moon, the stars, they are constantly in their course. I mean, if they weren't in their course, they wouldn't be able to stand in judgment, but they don't have the ability like human beings to have free will. So they follow the courses, so therefore they can be witnesses. It's like, hey, these guys down here, they're not following the courses that you, oh Lord, have established. And when we are not following those things that God has established for us to do, then at that point, there's judgment. When we are, there's blessing. So we choose to walk on a path not established by God and not good for us when we choose not to follow the path that God has established. Therefore, free will can become a mockery of God's will when we decide to go our own path, our own way, and not the path that God wants for us, which is a path of light, which is a path of truth, which is a path in doing the things that the Torah is instructing us to do, so that we learn, so that we grow, so that we're prepared for the day of the Lord. The word ed or edah means congregation, but it also means witness. And it shows us that a congregational setting, we are all as one people, we're as one man, and we walk and we work together for the congregation, for the good of the people in the congregation, for the betterment of the community, right? It also shows us that in the community, we become witnesses of each other's lives, of each other's walk with God. And through this witness, we see that we are not alone on our journey. We have each other that we can lean on and grow with. We have a hope, but also we have those around us that can help us, that lift us up when we fall short of doing God's will. So, if you can start looking at all the witnesses that God places, I guess you would say, in our path. We have congregation, we have family, we have the sun, moon, and stars, the earth, the animals. All of those things have a spark, have the spark of God, and therefore they have life. And because of that, they can witness our life. They can witness good and bad. And in this particular case with Ed, congregation, this community, it's so important for us to enter into community, be a part of a community, be together. I mean, no matter where you go, you will find a Jewish community within that city, within that town. You will find people that are wanting to do Judaism, that are wanting to live that Jewish life. And it's so important to get connected, because Judaism cannot be done alone. We need each other. And it's part of that, communication, part of that living amongst each other that helps us to grow and to learn from others, but also to help, each other by going, nope, that's not how you do it, or that's not, what Judaism teaches. So we help each other out in that sense. It's family. The mezuzah is also a witness. Okay. I have a little scroll that would be inside of a mezuzah there, so y'all can look at it. And if you can see, the first word is Shema, and you can see that the ayin is enlarged, larger than the rest of the letters. And then the dalet in the word echad is also enlarged. And the ayin is enlarged at the end of Shema. And like I said, the dalet is enlarged at the end of the word echad. Okay, but when we put these two letters together, the ayin and the dalet, it spells the word ed, which is congregation, but it's witness. Okay, and The mezuzah stands as a witness that our home looks to the Torah, looks to the Word of God, and we choose to walk through the door to a life of Torah and to have a close relationship with the one true God. I also find it interesting that we find 6 tagin above the ayin and 4 tagin, those little lines up at the top, they're like almost like little crowns. You find 4 of them above the dalet. So it equals 10 when you combine them, which is the number of the people required for a minyan, for a Jewish service. But it's also the number that's equal for what's called a tithe, giving 10%. Okay, nowadays it's 10% of our income to God. Before it was pertaining to the farming. You would bring your fruits, your first fruits. And I think that that is so important because, like I said, it's the same number as for a minyan. So it's like, it doesn't matter how many people are in the home. If you stop and look at those tagin, it's just like, oh, it's amazing because the witnesses, there are 10, tagin above those 2 letters. And I feel like the Lord is saying, you know what? I've got 10 watching over you. 10 people will be there with you in spirit. So, it's like we're constantly protected. The witnesses can be the sun, moon, stars, earth, the congregation. All those things will add up, I believe, to the 10 to make it a minyan, and you're never alone. You're there with other people, observing God's ways. And we take that witness into our home, right? We take that Torah into our home when we come in and we kiss the mezuzah, but also when we're leaving. Lord, surround me by your word. Surround me by your word as I walk this path, this world. In other words, I don't want to walk without you. Psalm 50, verse 4 says, he shall call to the heavens from above and to the earth that he may judge his peoples. He summoned the heavens above and the earth for the trial of his people. The Talmud understands the verse as a justification for God judging man was composed of both body and soul. Each one on his own cannot be held responsible for the acts of the other. When they are together, however, God is able to punish man for his sins or to discipline man. And this is from the Or HaChaim. So the body equals the earth and the soul equals the heavens. Moses meant that even after the separation of the body, when the body is no more, then you go back to the earth, that you can still listen to the words coming forth from Moses' mouth. This can be understood also with the help of the Zohar, Kadash, Bereshit 20. In the future, a heavenly voice will travel past every marked grave and invite the dead to rise from their graves. So in other words, even in the ground, a person is buried, but the words of Torah that are being spoken throughout the world, it's taught that they can still hear the Torah. They can still hear the word of God. They can still, receive what is being said. That requires a spiritual body or life that listens for God's voice through study and through prayer. Our hearts and minds need to be turned toward the spiritual life that God leads us to have a relationship with him. So ha'azinu means listen. Well, the word azan which is where you get ha'azin, the azan, basically, means give ear, listen, pay attention, or broaden your ear, like this type of thing, where you're broadening your ear, opening your ear to hear. The verb elevates the physical hearing into a moral and spiritual engagement. In other words, yeah, you can hear things, but are you listening? Are you receiving what a person is saying? Are you hearing what God is saying? And the thing is, in order to receive revelation from God, we need to be listening in the spirit, right? Proverbs 22:17, it says, incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge. So God calls the sun, moon, and stars as witnesses, but also at the hearing of God's voice, calling those witnesses. It's also a call to all of us of God's spark, with God's spark, I'm sorry, in all of creation. So God calling them as witnesses, he's also saying, hey, you've got a spark. You've got the spark of life within you. And I want you to hear. I want you to be like the sun and the moon and the stars that, remain within their boundary. Listen to what the sun, moon, and stars are saying to you, because they are witnesses of God's glory. They are witnesses of life. And like I said from the very beginning, they've been there before man, and they have followed the boundaries that God set. It's us in our free will that have forgotten, have chosen, not necessarily, but chosen not to follow God's ways. So not only are they a witness, that can hear and see our actions, but they are a witness for us to look at and go, oh my gosh, they're staying in their courses. I need to stay within my course. I need to follow the cycle that God has established for me to walk in. Yeshua said in Luke 19:40, I tell you, if these stop speaking, because they were complaining, it's like, can you tell them to be quiet? And he's saying, if they stop speaking, the stones will cry out. The stones will be witnesses to the glory of God. The three pictures that I put there. The top one is a three-dimensional handmade paper piece that Michael did. And I don't know if I can do this, but yes, I think I can. So right here, you can see the face of a man, and it's a man in the mountain. And then down here, it looks like mouths in these, it's a mountainside. And then obviously the tree, right? And it's a person, because it says, that the trees of the field will clap their hands. But then we also see other scriptures where it talks about the trees as being people. And I put those down also because each one of those things has life. Each one of those things, has that spark. And each one of those things are witnesses for our life and witnesses that we can learn from. And I was going to put a picture of the ocean, because to me that's so important. That, and I'm sorry I didn't, but basically the waters can only go so far, and then the sand stops them. The sand becomes the boundary for the ocean, right? And the sand, as we know in the scriptures, is basically the Jews. They'll be as numerous as the sand of the sea, right? And we've learned before that the waters are the nations, okay, the Gentiles. And the nations can rage and move around and do all kinds of crazy stuff. The waters can do all kinds of crazy stuff, but they have a boundary, and they can only go so far that God has allowed. And that boundary is Judaism. That boundary is the sand on the shore. So each one of those things are witnesses for us to learn from, but they are witnesses for our life, to see our life, to see that we are in the cycle. Psalm 96, verses 11 and 12 says, "Let the heavens be glad and let the earth rejoice. Let the sea resound and all that fills it. Let the fields exult and all that is in them. Then all the trees of the forest will sing for joy." Psalm 19, verses 1 through 4 says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. Without speech or language, without a sound to be heard, and yet they're speaking." I mean, this is amazing when you stop and think about it. The skies are showing us, is speaking to us, okay? And yet, not one word is coming out, but they are speaking. And we just need to look to the heavens, look to the earth, look to the moon, look to the sun. Let them teach you. Isaiah 44:23 says, "Sing for joy, O heavens, for the Lord has done this. Shout aloud, O depths of the earth. Break forth in song, O mountains, you forests, and all your trees, for the Lord has redeemed Yaakov and revealed his glory in Israel." So I leave you with this thought. Realize that everything in its course, everything in the heavens, the sun, moon, stars, the winds, everything has a course, has a boundary, and we can learn from those boundaries and see, how to stay within those boundaries. We can learn that from those things, okay? And at the same time, they are witnessing our lives, and they will testify of how we either stayed within our cycle, within the boundary that God established for us to live in, or not. So maybe this week you can begin looking at the different things that are a witness. Like I said, a mezuzah, your family, your congregation, your neighbors. All of those things are witnesses of your life. But at the same time, you are a witness. Your life is showing the glory of God. Your life is showing the boundaries that God has set for man to teach us how to walk humbly before our God and walk accurately, upright, yashar, before our God. And that is, yep. So that's what I have for you this week. I hope you got a lot out of it, and we will see you next week.